All right. Ready, Matthew?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy. Here with Sir Mix-a-Lot, who is very happy to see you this morning. Bobble Juan, the GOAT. Matthew, how we doing, baby? What's the vibes like after 2 points away in whatever the fuck New England is?
Yeah, that was really funny when you massively massacred the geography of the region. In possibly like the most stereotypically Tennessee way possible.
You're welcome. You're welcome out there. I do think that the fans that were surrounding us, and there were a few fans there, shockingly, they were all they were not fans. They were family of players for the most part, for the vast majority, except for the Jean-Antoine fans, which ruled. Because there was a bunch of kids that I assume were Haitian, couldn't tell. If they were speaking French, I think I would have recognized French. It didn't sound like French. I think it was Creole. Anyway, came and like mobbed him after the game, which was really, really cool, and they were running around. So anyway, except with an exception of those fans, I think everybody else was just families, as is normal. And I may have made myself heard yelling about ball boys and things.
As is custom.
Yeah, and what the hell is New England? What state even is this? I don't know. I said some ignorant things. It was a good time. Matthew, how are the vibes after coming home with 2 points?
Yeah, I mean, vibes are pretty good. If you just focus on us for a second, I thought we played pretty well overall. It wasn't easy.
Boy, was it not.
There were players had to make plays, a bunch of last-ditch tackles, pokes away. Gene came up huge. He had a great game. And
huge does not even begin to cover.
and like you need your players to make plays. I think that's going to be a takeaway of mine.
For sure.
Especially in this part of the season when you can look at the spreadsheet all you want.
Which we did. We spent a lot of time on the plane goofing around in the spreadsheets, seeing what our players look like. I'll let you talk about G+ at some point if you want to, but you can spend a lot of time in the spreadsheets. But
the only thing that matters is like ball go in, and that's just reality. So
and like we talked about, like we are no longer in the rod cess part, right? Like the rod cess
this is winning time.
The rod cess lasts until a certain point where you are who you are. And where it's just time to win or get off the pot. So to speak.
And I think kind of we've accepted very much we are who we are.
You and I certainly have.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the kind of the team, the selection, all those kinds of things, like
the 3-5-2.
Yeah, this is the thing that has noticeable defects because we're not a perfect team. Like we are who we are. But also gets the most amount of players in the best positions to give us the best chance of getting results. And that's been super important. And obviously you need a player like Minjay to just step up and make a play. A freaking incredible goal,
buddy, for his first
with CFC. And that's frankly that's a New England first team player that he turned and created separation on.
Maybe not anymore.
I think he's under contract for a while. I mean, it's a young. I don't think he's got a first team appearance yet. To be clear, it's not like that's the starting left back for New England or anything.
No, I think he has. I think he had 2 appearances last year for New England.
Okay.
I think we looked up.
Probably just a couple short term whatever situations.
Or 2 appearances this year rather for New England.
Yeah,
he is on a first team deal. Yeah, the kid we looked up. He's 19.
And then obviously, Gene made a bunch of saves. It wasn't like, that was the only, it wasn't like, Minjay's goal was the only moment. Like just a couple minutes prior, a great series of interplay between Mehdi, Taylor, and Alex. And Alex beats the goalkeeper but doesn't beat the post. And then Mehdi's hot on the rebound and the goalkeeper recovers to make a really nice save. We forced some really good combinations, especially in the second half. to force the keeper to make some plays. We were just inch close on a couple of big chances. Taylor hits the bar in the 89th minute that would have won the game. And obviously giving up the counterattack in the second minute of stoppage time in the first half was just a brutal blow. But like, I can't sit here and say that New England didn't deserve to be level at the break. Based
Correct.
on some of the other stuff.
Gene had two massive,
like one-on-one,
massive one-on-one saves. That were like, yeah, they're at a good angle where he covers the angle and he does the thing. But if you watch them on replay, they're even better than I thought in live. Like, they're
and they were terrifying
saves.
live.
Excellent saves.
Yeah.
The John Burke's parents, shout out, got the full Breezy experience there, or Breezy and Matthew game day experience, where we're just extraordinarily negative at all times. And I turned around and told them that we were for sure going to concede.
That was your
stoppage time. Listen, we were going to concede no matter what. Sometimes if I say that, we don't, and it works. The reverse jinx works. It did not work this time, and we did concede. And I think John Burke's mother's going to forever hold that against me correctly. But it was speaking of some vibes, like there's 15 of us plus John Burke's parents, I think, because I think there was 15 of us at the restaurant beforehand, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
Or maybe it was 15, including John Burke's parents there. I don't remember. Point being is I counted 15 people at some point, whenever it was. I think it was 15 people, including them and I think it was including them and everybody, but like a little 15 spot in New England.
And that comes from, like Burke's parents traveled in for it. And obviously, you, me, Jamie, and
by the way, the legends
for the weekend.
They hit up a college tailgate before.
That's incredible.
Which is, dude, hell yeah.
Justin,
just like we hit up the bar, they hit up a college tailgate. I love that.
Justin came up making it a part of a work trip, which I'd love to see. Rob Thomas, shout out, who lives.
Yeah, Rod lives up there now.
Rod Thomas lives up there now. Sean Weldon lives up there now. Also, shout out to Sean for taking us around.
Yes, for sure. Marissa, I don't actually, we're Facebook friends. Brought her two kids and they came over. They live up there now.
We saw
your cousins were there.
Yeah, my cousin lives in Albany. She brought her son and her son's cousin, which was cool. They're both like high school soccer players, and I think. If I'm not mistaken, that's their first pro game.
Bigger kid or smaller kid is your cousin? Curly hair?
Curly hair is my cousin.
So he has a full ass beard and is a full size grown adult at 16 or 17 or whatever he is.
Dude also runs cross country in the fall with soccer. And then does travel soccer and runs track in the spring.
What
and by the way, he's fast. He's faster than me.
Well, that's not
at the 800, like the shorter distances, incredibly quick.
You think he's going to go D1 somewhere at something?
I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't think he knows either. I think he's a sophomore.
Oh, he's got plenty of time to decide.
He's got plenty of time.
That's awesome. But my whole point with that is the vibes were immaculate. Oh, Davis was there. Two of Davis's friends were there. So there was 15 or so of us. And so there was a nice little group. It was raining. Shout out to Gillette for having, being a giant MLS or giant, whatever it is, football stadium that also the MLS team plays in, big and small. So we were able to be under an overhang while it was raining, which was clutch. And also the field looked nice. I realized it was turf and whatever, so people may not have liked it, but the field was nice. It was in good shape. There were no soccer lines on, or there were no football lines on it.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good stuff, man. It was, I don't know if they normally play there when there's football lines, if they remove them for the two team.
I don't think I've ever seen it in some of the highlight packages and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever seen football lines.
So I will give a little shout out, fuck New England, but also good for them. At least they removed the lines. They seem to care at least a little bit. And they had beer vendors open and a food vendor open. Just one, but it had full service. So I don't know what kind of food they had because I didn't get any food, but I was able to get a large beer and watch the game with a stadium beer. And that ruled.
Yeah.
They did the minimum that I think, if I'm going to give a little shout out, that's how every team, the minimum standards were met in every way possible.
Except for outside the stadium signage. because we had no idea.
Yeah,
where
we
to
couldn't
go.
find the gate, but we found it eventually. And they had very nice gate people who eventually they helped Justin, whose ticket was not working right. They eventually actually, because he could show that he was like, look, I just bought it. Like, here's the confirmation, but it's not coming through. It's not whatever. They eventually just let him in with because they had tickets there that they could give out if they needed to, if things didn't work, which were just the basics of doing it. So I just think New England hit all the basics, and I wish that some of the other MLS teams, they do a better job than fucking Atlanta does.
Wow.
In a lot of ways. And Atlanta plays at their own little stadium. So
One of the worst run teams in MLS. So what do you expect?
That makes sense. So anyway, my point being is shout out to them. I hope that more teams take, because we've been on a few road trips where Chicago was way worse than this. Chicago didn't have any tickets. Chicago had no concessions of any kind. You could just walk in and do what you want. We had halftime in Chicago. We ran across the parking lot to the bar to have a drink and then come back.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do any of that in this game. They had bathrooms open. It was just I realize those shouldn't be the basics, but sometimes teams don't care. And I mean, yeah, I'm just glad they did. I'm glad they did.
Let's go through the lineup.
Let's do it.
In goal, Gene, no surprise. Back three remained mostly constant. Farid Zarzar, Anatoly Prepelica, Duvan Villafaro is back in the lineup after missing the Columbus game through illness.
And all three of them were massive.
Yeah.
They played. They all three. Anatoly was the MVP, but Duvan had a hell of a game. Farid was tidy and good, and it was very, very good performance from the three of them. And in particular, Anatoly, who kept that between him and Gene, they kept that game. You can tell I'm spending too much time with too many players because I'm calling him Gene instead of Jean. But Jean-Antoine and Anatoly were the two guys who kept that thing 1-1. That it could have easily many times devolved into a worse play or become 2 or 3-1.
Yeah.
And they just fucking took care of business.
Yeah. Andres Jimenez Aranzazu at the 6. You had Minjay Kwok at right midfield, Alex McGrath and Luis Garcia Sosa in the middle of the park, Milo Garvanian at left midfield, and then a strike partnership of Taylor Gray and Mehdi Wamri.
Who've got a little something going on. They got a little connection going on. They've really got a vibe in the best possible way going between the two of them in the last 5 games. There's a chemistry there. You can see it. There's back heels occasionally, but it's to someone who they know is going to be there. It's little dinks. It's back and forth. It's chips over. I mean, it's just they clearly understand where each other's going to be. I said this to you at the game. When Marcus first got here back in the Fuller days, and Juan was in his last, and Baba Juan was playing his last few regular professional appearances. He played a whole other year, but when he was a starter, when he got there, it was immediate. Marcus and Juan had a connection. You could see that they understood where the other one was going to go or what the other one was going to do. And I remember at the time being damn, these two guys are just they just met and now they're brains are connected. That's how it feels with Mehdi and Taylor right now, and it's very good.
Yeah, and then linking up with Alex making those forward runs.
Yeah. They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones playing well.
But you see that play out in Alex's chance in the 16th minute.
Man, I'd forgotten about that Alex chance.
So Minjay's goal comes in the 18th minute. It's assisted by Milo Garvanian. That's his 6th on the year, 6th assist. And if you want to hockey,
is it a big ball across or is Milo cutting in? I don't remember the pass.
No. So Milo plays a 1-2 with Mehdi. So Milo is central, and I have to go back and watch to see the full transpiration or whatever. But Milo is central, plays the ball into Mehdi, who bumps it right back, and then Milo just sends it out wide.
Got it.
It's as simple as that.
I remember Minjay's goal. I remember that whole part. I just couldn't remember where. Yeah, but that makes sense. Milo had drifted a little more central.
Right. And so that's 6 assists for Milo in the year.
Dude, Milo is having a hell of a finish to the season too. That's 2 goals and 2 assists in the last 4 games. Or last 5 games.
Yeah.
It's either 4 or 5, but it's a goal or an assist every game, which is fucking awesome.
Crown Legacy, Miami, had one against Atlanta. Yeah. Had one against Columbus.
Had a goal against Atlanta, had a goal against Columbus.
Yeah. 2 and 2 and
4 and 5. It's 2 goals, 2 assists in 5 games. Since going back to the left side, essentially. When we've gone to the 3-man again, kind of semi-permanently.
Yeah. Although I think his Crown Legacy assist comes from the right-hand side.
Yes,
because they would have switched.
Yes, but he started on the left-hand side of that game. Yeah, you're right. He did. He was, because we did the math on which side he assists from.
Is that actually? That's 2 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. He's got one in every single one.
Even more so to my point,
Wild.
he's having a hell of a finish this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, cheers for podcasting semi-early in the morning. We're both drinking coffee. Well, little peek behind the curtain. Breezy slept through the original call time. So, I don't know what happened there, but we were podcasting semi-early.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not as early as we could have.
I'm giving Mehdi a hockey assist for that as well, which I can't remember if it's his first or whatever it is. But another goal involvement for him, although not a primary goal involvement. There was a sub at halftime. Jesus Ibarra came on for Luis Garcia Sosa. And then the only other sub made for us in that game is Joseph Perez in the 85th minute for Minjae Kwok. And that ended up being a quasi penalty sub because JP has been a regular penalty taker this year, and stepped up and buried one. XG, the totals for us, this is the CFC version. We were at 1.44. The Revs were at 1.8.
That's from CFC's internal numbers that we then publish.
Yeah. American Soccer Analysis had it at 1.52 for CFC and 1.6 for the Revolution. So a little bit tighter number, but all still in the rough range. Yeah, I mean, the possession ended up, New England was a little bit higher than us, probably like 55-45 in the end.
Something we talked about on the way home while we were stuck on a double. So Matthew and I, another people on the curtain, generally when we travel to these games, we don't have connections. It's it's pretty much a rule that we don't take connections. But getting to
Providence.
I was going to say Boston-ish because Providence is actually closer to Foxborough. Something that I was joking about, but I didn't ever really understand. I think one of the reasons they play in Foxborough is because they're not the Boston Patriots, right? They are the New England Patriots, which in theory includes Rhode Island and whatever other. I said
Connecticut.
I said a lot of states, joking around, but
New Hampshire,
all the states that are included in in New England.
It's everybody but New York, to be clear. It's just everybody but New York.
But I think it's weird because I think the Boston claims the Pats when it's like Boston versus New York, but then it's really everybody's team. I don't know. It's weird. But point being is we couldn't get into Boston or Providence. We ended up going to Providence because Providence is much closer, and we had some other shenanigans to do, which we can talk about. But getting up there, you had to take connection. So you and I spent a reasonably hungover but happy morning. Wasn't actually that hungover, shockingly.
I wasn't hungover at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
I had like a little 2 of 10 hangover. I deserved much worse. But we had a lovely hour flight, 3 hour layover, or hour and a half flight, 3 hour layover, hour and a half flight, plus time in the airport on both as we waited for Jamie to land. So we had I don't know, but 7 hours I feel to talk about what we thought of the season, and I had something we figured out during this period.
It was possession. It was that our possession numbers.
That's what it was. During that time, we did a deep dive on stuff that I'm sure we would talk about a lot in the offseason, but tell me about possession and what we kind of discovered during that period of time.
I kind of don't remember it exactly in terms of high confidence that I will say this right off the cuff, but essentially we have not had a 53% or more possession.
Yeah, that's correct.
Since
our highest possession was 52 in one of those last 12 games.
It might have been Crown.
Games.
It might have been somebody.
Yeah.
Or Huntsville or something like that. We've not had a statistically significant amount of possession, which I'm counting like a 5% gap.
Yeah, totally. More than them.
Since I don't know, friggin' May, mid-June, something
it's
crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that's not just good teams or bad team, quote unquote bad teams, or teams that want to play direct and are willing to sit back. It's just period. And I think that's been a really interesting kind of just way the season has unfolded, because that's clearly not our primary goal is to win games. But one of the ways that we have identified in our game model to be able to do that is to have more possession.
Control. It's all about control. And
we are we're not having that control. We're not having that possession. And it's resulted in, hey, Toby, it's resulted in us having to figure out how to play and create chances and also defend without as much of the ball. And I think that's one of the things, and I don't know, but I think that's one of the things where this kind of 3-1-4-2 system has come from.
By the way, I've stopped calling it that. I'm just calling it a 3-5-2 because those 8-10s are not playing now that Jude and Andres are not in there together, which they were at the beginning of the 3-man like experiment, kind of back in the Philly time, the Philly and Crown time, or Philly and Carolina Core time. Like there was a little bit more tactical, like I don't know what to call it, like uniqueness to it. It played much more like a very, very different thing where you're like, what the fuck? This is not what I'm normally used to seeing on a 3-man. Now, like it's not a pure normal 3-5-2 because it's a 3-5-2, but then your players are going to play it differently.
I mean, like your wing backs are sometimes high, they're sometimes low, and the makeup of your 3 in the middle is a 1 and then a 2.
Yes. So that's how a 3-5-2 is generally put together, where we had that thing where Andres was kind of doing absolutely everything going back and forth. We had a 10 that was much more of a 10. Then we played with 2 10s at a time.
It is very much a single pivot now.
Yes.
And
correct.
so everything else is kind of negotiable.
Yes, exactly.
I like the way the 3-1-4-2 that is more
a 3-5-2 and a 3-1-4-2 are the exact.
They're functionally the same. It's just
that's how everybody plays a 3-5-2.
It's just a single,
for the most part.
It's just a single pivot
for the most part.
But I'm still going to call it that because I can and just deal with it.
Okay. I'm just calling it 3-5-2. But I do think that like where you're going with that is that the switch to the 3-5-2 has kind of been it's been a two-part response. I haven't got to ask Rod about this, but for sure it is a response. For sure, clearly it is a who are our best players, who are the players we most trust. And as the season goes on, how do we get them all on the field at the same time? And very clearly, in my mind, it is how do we get Fareed on the field? And like it has worked very well. The 3 center back partnership has been very well. Obviously, Fareed's played a lot of minutes. I guess you'd have to look up the minutes, but he's high in minutes this year. Not only because he started, but because he started at random times, and he came in he came in the midfield a little bit. He came in because you can see Rod using the guy, right? Like we brought him in as a 6 several times. We started him as a 6. Hi, Toby.
Yeah.
So like how many minutes is he at if you can find it? But I think that that's the first part of don't step on your brother, dude. Don't be rude. Well, there I set him right on top of him. Sorry, Mixie.
Yeah, Fareed's up to 1,300 minutes.
Sorry, Mixie. That's Daddy's bad. All right, sorry for that interlude. But my point being is like he's up to 1,300 minutes.
Yeah.
What does Duvan have?
2,000.
And what does Tolly have?
1,800.
What does Milo have?
Just over 2,000. 2,061.
What does JP have?
1,361.
So you have JP. And
I mean, this is actually pretty easy to differentiate out. You've got 5 guys over 2,000 minutes. You've got another one who's pretty close in Milo. Anatoli's at 1,800. Gene's at 1,568, but we'll leave him out because it's goalkeeper. Jude's at 1,414. JP's at 1,361. Fareed's at 1,303, and there's no one else above 1,000 right now. Mm-hmm. Now that'll change almost certainly the next game, but that's just where we are right now.
Yeah, Fareed but my point with saying that is like I think at some point we realized that like how many points does Jesse Williams? How many minutes does Jesse Williams have? How many minutes does Robert Screen have? Like those are in theory your 2 right backs.
Yeah, Jesse's down at 878. So at some point they decided.
At some point they decided like we want Fareed on the field. On this right side of the defense. He's not really playing right back, but he's playing right center back, or he's playing regular center back, depending, or in a 2-man, or occasionally in the midfield or whatever else. But I think you just see like we went to the 3-man in part to get Fareed on the field because he's a good player, and we've decided that that's the way we want to go. And I do think as we were unable to keep possession, I think Rod made a conscious decision. Now I'm in that first take I feel very comfortable with because you've seen it in other years. You've seen it where we just eventually we settle on the guys we want. But this is a take that I'm not sure on, but I feel good about, if that makes sense. This next take, which is that I think we've moved to this 3-5-2 because we can't keep, in part because it's harder for us to keep the ball for a sustained period of time defensively. The defensive possession is really difficult right now. And offensively, we're not creating a lot with possession. So we've gone a little more direct. We still want to keep the ball at times. It's not like we've gotten rid of all of our principles, but we are now pressing out of a 3-5-2 because it's our most, having 5 guys in the midfield, so including the outside backs and the 3 midfielders. Now having 5 in the midfield has allowed us to press in the midfield in a way we could not out of a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
We just couldn't get pressure. and we couldn't turn them over. And if we did turn them over, it was not in areas where we were getting like chances off those turnovers. That 3-5-2 has allowed us to get vertical, as we've talked about in previous episodes, in a way we haven't all year until now. And it's allowed us to press with turn over and crowd the midfield with 5 players, and then get into transition and create things. But it's at the expense.
It's also added more bodies closer to goal when there are moments to attack. And the trade-off is there's one fewer body that's kind of like always back, so to speak, to defend, which is why now you've got your 3 best defenders.
Yes. There's also one fewer body all the way forward, so you don't have a winger that's forward all the time. It's very incumbent on like having the right outside backs, and we've settled on Milo, JP, and Minjay as our 3 outside backs. Prior to now, when we were playing a 4-man, we eventually settled on it's Milo and it's JP, but they were like, one of them was playing out of position at all times. And granted, one of them can currently play out of position, but Minjay coming back in, Minjay being converted into a right wing back, Milo going back out left, and then having JP either on the left or the right has allowed us to have, I think, a little better balance there too, with amount of bodies that can do things, and having the feet be more like the left footed on the left foot on the left and the right footed on the right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of talk about like the possession thing that I think we maybe intrinsically knew, but didn't realize how far it had gone since we had been like dominant in possession. Because in the first half of the season, even though the numbers were weird, the spreadsheets were weird, we were still holding possession.
We were a top 3 team in possession the first half of the year.
And that fucking development curve.
Yeah, and it just all of a sudden, like, you know, the league's level just went up. It wasn't overnight, but it sometimes like development is not linear.
No,
and
but around
progress
the
is
point,
not linear.
Yeah,
but like, so it was definitely getting there, and we were handling it, and then all of a sudden, like, we just couldn't handle it anymore. And I think that's what's prompted this change.
Well, it just
for
took
this
us
part of the season, and it took us like
a while to figure out what that change was.
I mean, we went through that summer slump. Like, we really struggled to adapt. And now we've got something that like that's cooking with gas a little bit.
Speaking of which, there is a mailbag thing in here.
There's a few actually.
I was going to related to this that I was going to read now, unless you want to read it from. Let's see.
Which one are you?
Okay, from Albert. I'll read it to you. Rod this year has been a lot better when it comes to adapting and changing. This is Albert's words. Not everything worked out, but if you do not try, you will not know what will work. I see massive improvements compared to last year. My only frustration is they mostly make subs in the 80-plus minutes. At that point, it's too late for fresh blood to make a real change. And then there's a rivalry quote after this, which I guess
let's do that one later.
Yeah, we can add later. But I think I co-sign all of that. I'm not necessarily frustrated about the 80-plus minute subs because I don't know. I've made my peace with like no manager subs early.
I would also take a little bit of an issue because I think he makes more 40 like halftime subs than I think most people do. Like he is willing to make a halftime sub. We saw it last year. With switching Beto and LGS. He's done. I would put the if you'd set the over under at 3.5 halftime subs this year, I would take the over.
Yeah.
And that's not something that happens very often.
I think he makes a singular halftime sub more often than most managers, and then in general, he doesn't make subs until late. Because I think I think it's probably a function of this year we're deeper, so he's making more subs in general, but last year, eventually you get to who your guys are, and you get to who you trust, and you're just not like last game we made 2 subs, one in like the 85th minute or something, and one at halftime. The one at halftime was clearly to try to change the game. Don't know that it did, but like
I would argue from the weekend's game that it kind of did, because we were better. Like we evened out possession in the second half to 50-50. We didn't give up as nearly as many big chances in the second half. I think there was more like terrifying stuff, but like the big chances weren't there in a way that they were in the first half. We also created some, we had those couple moments in the first half, but we created a little bit more in the second half. That did not always result in a shot for whatever reason, but it was a lot closer and there was more volume in it. So I would say like the halftime sub kind of worked out.
Interesting. I didn't really see it that way. All right, go back and finish the lineups. I just wanted to
We
point
did.
out,
We finished them.
we did okay. Yeah. So I would co-sign. I just co-sign most of what Albert said there with like Rod's trying. Like I see that too. Like he's trying more things this year. He has thrown more stuff like in game at the wall to see what will work, including putting Jesus in at the 10, who hasn't played the 10 in a 3-5-2 at all for us, and definitely hasn't played the 10 in a 4-3-3 all season.
Yeah, correct. All right, let's do some takeaways.
Let's do it. Go for. Do you want me to go with mine since mine are longer, or do you want to go with yours first?
You go first. You go first.
Individual goals don't often happen, and in this league,
for us,
well, in this league, that's a real downside for us. So individual goals for us don't happen. You're right. It's a big downside. That being said, Minjay's was fucking incredible. One thing I think we had a problem with last year. Actually, last year the solution was Marcus doing individual things, but this year we've had a real problem with is we don't have one person who's going to do it all on their own. We occasionally, well, I mean, not occasionally, we definitely have guys that will beat a guy and cross it and whatever else. And so like the offense isn't abysmal, but it's not good enough. And part of that reason is we don't have a lot of singular, like, I'm just going to put the team on my back and go beat somebody. That's something that's all throughout USL Championship, which we just had a USL Championship game. Like so many of their goals are like one guy came on my back, I beat a guy and I shoot and I score.
The Aaron Bibu goal for Tulsa
oh my God,
was unbelievable.
Former MLS Next Pro player, thank you very much.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So, like, we don't have a lot of that. Other teams do. You look at the Miami game, and I think we talked about it in that Miami recap. Like, we don't have like really anybody that's gonna beat like three guys and then unleash just a corner shot, right? Like, it just doesn't happen very much. So, this isn't me like talking shit about the team necessarily. Just like it was really cool to see Minjay do the thing that we haven't done all season, really, and it was as good as you're gonna get. Like, it's the perfect individual goal. If somehow you missed it and you haven't seen it, go watch the 90 and 13, 90 and 15. Which, by the way, 90 and 15. Don't do 2 minutes of lineups and then skip some of the penalties. Just show us all the fucking penalties. The penalties was the most terrifying part of the season so far. Yeah. Like, jeez. But yeah, so I want to give extra shout out to that goal and that because that's a moment that if we don't do that, like, you know, our playoff hopes are done.
Yeah.
Sorry, if Minjay doesn't do that.
If you want to keep going.
Sure. The 3-5-2 is still working. Can it carry to the playoffs? I don't know, but sure hope so. But the 3-5-2 is still working, still effective, still making problems for the other team, and it is very much who we are now. We are a 3-5-2 team until we're not. Number 3, shootouts in this league are really annoying, but they do add a lot of drama and opportunity. So I still hate them, but we wouldn't be anywhere close to the playoff hunt without them.
Yeah, if you think about it, we would.
Actually, we have a table that we could look at exactly where we would be and exactly where everyone else would be based on their shootout wins and shootout losses.
If you just equalized it out to regular draws, I mean, yeah, we would be,
because that's what in Michael's spreadsheet that
is an option. We'd be nowhere close.
Yeah, we would be out of the playoff picture without shootouts,
and it's not. Yeah, it wouldn't even be.
And that is two things. That is home field advantage with fans doing raucous shit behind the goal and putting pressure on from the stands and those academy kids waving their shirts and like just distracting. Like, it's so good. And the players feel that pressure and they clearly mess up. And then the other piece is Jean-Antoine and the team, the shooters have been good, but Jean-Antoine has been, and John Burke have been massive. John Burke has 2 shootout wins, and I think Jean-Antoine has 5. I think that's right, or 6.
Yeah, I think it's 7 wins and 9.
Which is 5-2. It's 5-2. Which is insane. The goalkeepers have been massive. Shout out John Burke. Shout out Jean-Antoine. Shout out JC, like goalkeeping coach. Like, shout out guys for getting us to. I mean, John Burke. We haven't even talked about it, but John Burke has the heroics in
Charlotte.
And then Jean-Antoine has the heroics in this game to save 3 and send another one that he would have saved off the post.
Man, I really thought we were done for.
We were. We were done.
I mean, we were on the brink. In multiple times in that penalty shootout, we were on the brink.
And especially the last one where Fareeds gets saved. And, like, by the way, fuck that goalkeeper for doing basketball. You lost, asshole, doing basketball celebrations. But when that happens, our season was over.
Yeah, because if you really think about it,
and then it wasn't.
We only getting to 39 points would drop our max point
To 45.
to 45. And I really believe that could have been curtains. Because we don't have the win tiebreaker on it. We will not have the wins tiebreaker on anybody except maybe Chicago. And at this point, given the Carolina Core win against Columbus on Sunday, which leveled Carolina on points with us, they have us on the wins tiebreaker.
For anyone who doesn't know, wins is the first tiebreaker.
So they have a 2-win gap on us. So even if we win 2 games to go to 46 points, they also have to win 2 games to go to 46 points.
And if they win those 2 games and we win our 2, they're still 2 ahead of us. So they would just be in the playoffs and we won't be if that's a playoff spot that we're tied for.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, if they win where they are in the wins tiebreaker, I think if they win those 2 games, they're in, because Orlando clinched a playoff spot on 46 points.
Because they have a bunch of tiebreakers.
Night, because I think they got up to 11 wins as well. So, or 12 wins maybe now.
It is actually, so I hate the shootouts. We've been over that. But like, if you're going to have the shootouts, having wins as the first tiebreaker
makes sense. And then like shootout wins are, I think, after goal difference. So like they do matter in the tiebreakers, but like,
well, and there's points in the table, but they do wins in regulation as the
makes total sense. I'm
actually good followed by goal difference. I mean, I don't like it, but I get the logic for it.
Yeah.
And then my last key takeaway is, or my last bonus takeaway is, so Matthew and I went to the Rhode Island game. Matthew, me, and Jamie and Sean, shout out boys, went to the Rhode Island game in Providence. After that, it's a great time. It was very rainy. It was very
it's cold,
very
and rainy,
old,
man.
Very old England weather, and but we had a lovely time. Saw several former MLS Next Pro players who I watched in a ton of highlights in the first quarter of this season, which is wild to me. In my when I was remember when I was watching every single 90 and 15 across the league every week for the first 4 weeks.
Tulsa has 2 that were standouts in the beginning part of the season now.
It's just wild. Well, and then one guy's on loan. I think one guy's the striker's on loan, right?
Striker's on loan.
Bibu's on loan, and they bought Faizo Betash or whatever his name is, who I really like, who's a good player. But I really like Aaron Bibu. He's awesome. But we went to that game. We actually ran into a couple Revs 2 players who saw our I had my CFC rain jacket on and the CFC hat on, and everybody else had various CFC gear things on, and they were like, "Holy shit, were you guys just at the game?" And we're like, "Yeah," and we ended up talking, and one of the things that came out of that conversation, they were very nice, very cool kids, but they were kids. Both of them were teenagers who play for the 2 team. They were like, it was really cool coming down to Chattanooga and playing in front of fans. That was just an insane bicycle kick. That was an insane atmosphere. It's really special. Man, I was really cool to be down there. I can't believe you guys traveled for the game. That's so cool. They flagged us down, and then they talked to us about how cool it was that, So what I wanted to point out there is we've known that was true in the NPSL. I knew that was true in the NPSL. You had, guys excited to come here after playing in another team because they're like, man, there's real fans here. It matters here.
It was true in Nisa.
It was true in Nisa. I mean, everybody's Super Bowl was against us. And I think in MLS it's a little different. In MLS Next Pro it's a little different. But I do think this is the first time I've had any confirmation, and I didn't solicit it. I wasn't so how was it playing in Chattanooga? They brought it up.
Yeah.
And they talked about how cool it was. And my hope is in the future, a lot of guys will see, especially guys in the East, will make the trip down, will play with their team, or be on the bench or whatever it is, and they will see what it's like to be in Chattanooga and to play somewhere where soccer matters. And for some of those guys that are not going to care about that. Some guys are going to be focused on whatever they're focused on. But for some guys, it's going to matter, and they're going to want to come here because of that. And hearing that unsolicited was really cool.
I thought it was really cool to hear that from a guy who is on a first team contract.
Both guys were on first team contracts.
And then both team, I guess both guys are. Although I only think one of them is public.
Yes. According to them both, the other kid had just signed a first-team deal. So I don't know if that meant they just told him he's going to be one in the offseason, or if he's actually physically put pen to paper.
Or if it's going to
or if he did last season. Like, I don't know.
It'll almost certainly, based on the allocation,
but the one
effective next year.
The one player we were able to look up that he is truly on the first team. He was not telling stories.
Yeah. So like it's really cool for like those guys. Their mind is not at all on, what's my move after.
Yeah, because I mean,
those guys are like, I am assigned to the New England first team. I want to break into the first team. I want to play for the first team. Like that's where their head's at.
Of course.
So it's really, really cool to hear that from guys whose like focus is definitely not on like,
because Sean, I think Sean Weldon, or I think it was Sean, was like, hey, you guys, if it doesn't work out, you guys would be great in Chattanooga or whatever else. And they were like, I'm on a first team deal. And then like they weren't like being jerks. They were just like, I'm really thinking and hoping it's going to work out. Like I'm trying to play for the big Revs. But then like to have them go on and on about how cool it was to play in Chattanooga, how insane the atmosphere was, how good some of the players were, like individually they kind of gave like a rundown, like, oh, this player was really good and that player was really good. Man, I really like that player, and like that player's so nice. And anyway, it was just really cool to have like unsolicited them flag us down and talk about how cool Chattanooga is. And I hope and I believe that will spread a little bit, not just spread from them, but I mean like that will be the reality for a lot of players. And I hope that, in the offseason and in years to come, we see some guys looking here as another opportunity to advance their career, not just with a team attached to an MLS team, but with an independent team where soccer matters.
Yeah. All right, I'll do.
Bless you, Toby.
Bless you, buddy. I'll do mine. Number one, that's a really good team performance on the road, and if you divorce the context of the game from being the third to last game of the season, of the regular season, of desperately needing every single point to maybe stay in the playoff race, if you take that out for just a second, 2 points on the road is incredibly good, especially in a league where there's this much parity.
And especially when you go 8 rounds or whatever it went.
Yeah. So like, remembering that, like, yes, New England are at the bottom of the table, but like, it's still difficult to go on the road in this league.
And the parity in this league means that anybody can beat anybody. Yeah.
It's insane. And so like those are 2 really good points. Obviously, our situation in terms of the playoff race and the standings, like, would I have liked 3? Absolutely.
I mean,
but like that's a separate conversation.
Argument is that we needed 3. Now, we needed 3 because we didn't get the 3 against Atlanta at home, and that is what it is. But like, we needed 3. 2 was the minimum acceptable number.
Yeah.
Not even acceptable, but to stay in the playoff hope, playoff hunt.
Yeah. Number 2, players make plays. Like this is the portion of the season called winning time. You need players to step up. You need players to make big plays. It doesn't matter what the spreadsheet says anymore. It doesn't matter that, New England had a little bit more XG. Like, players make plays. Players take shots. Sometimes those shots go in. Sometimes the keeper makes good saves. Like, that's all part of it now. And you need your players, whether it's different guys on different days or like a couple guys consistently. You need your big players to step up and make plays to give yourself a chance.
And they did.
And that's, if we do happen to claw our way back in and get into the playoffs on decision day, that's going to be a big reason why.
Totally. I mean, look, Tolly, Minjay, and Gene were massive.
And they weren't the only ones. Like, it was a great team performance.
But if you want to call out 3, like, that's the 3 I'd call out.
My third takeaway is, look, the road ahead is extremely tough. I'm not saying we have to have 6 points, because I don't know. We don't know how results are going to go elsewhere.
Mathematically, we don't necessarily have to have 6 points at this point.
But like, I can't even guarantee we get into the playoffs
with 6 points.
We
do not even control our own destiny.
That is terrifying.
Which is why you need 6 points.
And almost certainly we need like 5 at the minimum.
Well, and so
you
and I did in that 7 hours a ridiculous amount of computation as best we could, not using Michael's spreadsheet, which rules, but just going through like each team that's around us and going, how could they get to a number where they can beat us? And so many teams,
all they have to do is win a game.
All they have to do is win one, game, and they will have the tiebreaker on us if we don't get 6 points.
Yeah.
And so many teams can just, if they win out, of course, just in the playoffs, and we're not. But like so many teams can eliminate us if we lose the next game, or we draw, or we even get 2 points. The amount of teams, there's like thresholds on each one that can just win one of their next 2 or one of their next 3 and eliminate us because of tiebreakers.
Yeah. If we don't win the next 2, we are not on 46 points. Then
there's like
all it takes is 3 points in 2 games
for several different teams.
Like 3 different teams.
And so now if we get to 46, it's going to take some real bounces going against us for somebody not to drop some points. So like there's still a chance with 46. I believe if we win the next 2, we'll get in.
So there's a question about the playoff picture.
Go.
So let's just go ahead and go into it.
Do it.
So I don't know what time you're trying to edit and get this thing out, but if you are listening after or just before the Miami Atlanta game on Tuesday, that's a big one. Miami sits on 42 points. They're at 25 games played. So if any points that Atlanta steals, if they can steal anything, would be massive for us because it would lower Miami's
keep talking about the playoff picture. I'll be right back.
Lower Miami's available points. So that'll be Miami's 26th game on the season. They'll have 2 remaining. New York, Columbus, and Crown Legacy each have 2 games remaining. All 3 of those teams are on 42 points. So this is where it comes in. They're all at 10 wins right now, which is going to be wild for seeding. So if either, this is why it's so important for us to collect 6 points out of these last 2 games to get us to 46, because dropping a point into 45 means that New York's next win, if New York wins 1 game out of 2, they're going to have the tiebreaker on us. If Columbus wins 1 game out of 2, they're going to have the tiebreaker on us. And if Crown Legacy wins 1 game out of 2, they're going to have the tiebreaker on us. Because we'll be on, in that scenario, we'll be on 10 wins max. And they are already on 10 wins. If we go further down, the one to watch now is Chicago. Orlando beat Chicago pretty convincingly last night, Monday night. And that means that Chicago is at 26 games played. They've got 2 remaining, and they're on 41 points. So in Chicago's last 2 games, one of which is against Columbus, we desperately need Chicago to drop points. Because if they do that, then we can overtake them with 2 wins. We also need Carolina Core to drop points in their 2 remaining games, because Carolina Core has the tiebreaker on us. So for a while, we've been kind of looking at the playoff picture from us in the 9th place perspective. But Carolina Core is on a crazy good run right now.
And now they're in 9th.
With the a level on points, but with the wins tiebreaker. So we need 2 teams to drop. And that's obviously going to be difficult. But that's why you play the games.
Yeah, it's my belief that somebody's going to drop some points here. And look, Carolina may just win all the way through, but I think somebody's going to drop some points. And we're going to have a shot at this if we get 2 wins. But 2 wins is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Especially away from home in Toronto in our first ever away match on international soil.
Yeah, that's the first game. Yeah. So Toronto, the stakes for Toronto, number 1, it's a must win. It's must 3 points.
Must 3 points.
It's our first ever match outside the United States. It's also the 300th competitive match in club history.
When you say that, what do you mean?
So take out friendlies. Take official competitions.
Take out preseason. So this includes any official game.
NPSL regular season. NPSL playoffs. NISA regular season. NISA playoffs. NISA Legends Cup. NISA Independent Cup.
U.S. Open Cup.
U.S. Open Cup. MLS Next Pro regular season. Yeah.
Very fucking cool.
300.
If you're still thinking about going, I looked the other day. I haven't looked today, but as of like 3 days ago, you could still get a ticket for like 253 round trip out of Nashville.
We're going to do this live.
Matthew's going to pull it up now. You only get one chance to go to CFC's first ever international away game and also the 300th competitive game. Come on, y'all. Get on the boat, on the bus, on the train, on the whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, tickets are not bad. If you're trying to do it the shortest way possible, which is Saturday through Monday, tickets are like $274.
Come on, y'all.
Air Canada.
Direct?
No, you have to make a stop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the Delta flight, I think, takes you to Detroit, and then you jump onto WestJet from there.
By the way, there's ways of this. You could do it. You could fly to Buffalo and drive across. Like, there's a bunch of different ways you could do it. But just think about it. Somebody
the Air Canadas are too much right now. You might have better luck out of Atlanta.
You might now. The other day, BNA was better.
Yeah,
Nashville was better.
But still, get on the plane if you can.
Think about it, y'all. I'm serious. You're going to regret missing this if you don't do it.
There's gonna be a great crowd. Gonna be a great crowd there. Let's do our last mailbag.
Yeah, a couple more mailbags.
We didn't put out a call, but thank you for a couple people who responded to me privately very, very quickly this morning.
Did you mention Sammy G's?
I did not. Shout out Sam Gibson for commenting after the Atlanta game.
Sammy, I'll give you the quickest cruise review possible. MSC ruled. I think, Matthew, I'll let you say differently if you think differently, but I think MSC ruled overall. So that wasn't like, there's things that aren't perfect, but in general, like, it was what we needed. We spent 2 days on a cruise island, which could be really negative for some people who want to sightsee, but I think for me, it ruled because I was neck deep in the crystal clear blue water.
Oh my gosh.
With a Corona in my hand for like 7 hours one day and 4 hours another day. It could not have been more perfect. We did get a cabana to split between the 4 couples the second day, and that was absolutely clutch and the thing to do. But the 2 days on the cruise island were literally perfect. It was literally perfect to go on a cruise with some of the most beautiful, wonderful people in the world, Matthew and others. And it was such a fill my cup cruise. And we went after a terrible loss. So like,
oh man,
that part ruled, man.
What's really good is the Miami game was awful, and going on a cruise just completely reset just really anything about like what matters.
What was your favorite thing you ate on the cruise?
Late night pizza was.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Incredible.
It was, since it was an Italian cruise ship, the pizza was it like Southside pizza good? No, but it was a lot better than most pizza places are, and it was like a step below Southside pizza. Like, it was fucking good.
What I really enjoyed, they had this like little, if you went to like the very, very far back of the ship where we did, the back of the dining, like, there was like kind of two dining halls kind of back to back. We went to like the far back one.
You mean
the cafeteria?
Yeah.
And
the all-you-can-eat buffet.
There was an ethnic section, which didn't really have a lot of variety. It was mostly like Indian, which ruled for me.
That was delicious.
Awesome. But in the mornings, they would do these like kind of fried rice bowls. And I really enjoyed that. Like that really started my mornings like well, because like we were gonna wake up and start drinking pretty early, so like having a nice base was really important.
Yes, and also being able to go get a cappuccino that was like a solid, decent cappuccino at any like
literally any hour, basically.
Yeah, at any place, and they call them bars. So in Italy, like a bar is not like where you go and drink alcohol. A bar is where you go get coffee. So there was bars throughout the ship that like were coffee bars, and you could just go get coffee at any point. And I desperately miss the cappuccinos. I'm not even like that big of a milk and coffee person, but like it was.
Yeah,
so good.
It was pretty cool. I would
and pastries. You get pastries too.
If the pricing and the dates and like the locations were good in the future, like I would go back.
Also, I'll tell you what I paid. I paid $600 a person for like unlimited everything for like a 5-day cruise. I don't think I can beat that vacation price wise going anywhere.
Yeah. It probably is the cheapest way to go to a Caribbean island. We're 2.
And the drink package and food package and all that stuff was included on the island, which they're not always included in different like cruise lines, but MSC includes it. And so since we spent 2 days on the cruise island, we still had unlimited everything. Yeah. We also met some like hilarious people. Shout out Vlad, who will never hear this, but we met an extraordinary guy from Belarus that we hung out with. And anyway, it was a phenomenal experience, and I want more Friends cruises after that for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up the playoff scenarios. Basically it's this: if Miami is playing, if New York is playing, if Columbus is playing, if Crown Legacy is playing, if Chicago is playing, and if Carolina is playing, you want them to lose. Now, when they play each other, as in the case of Columbus and Chicago, I think mathematically the smartest solution is to have one of them separate and one of them get really hurt.
So we want, at this point, we want Chicago to lose.
Right, because if Chicago wins their other game but loses to Columbus, their max points goes to 44, which means we can overtake them with our results.
Yes.
So I think it makes sense for Columbus to separate themselves out against Chicago. They'll have another game against somebody at the end of the season.
The other thing,
which also means if they don't win that, they could be stopped
45.
at 45.
Yes.
So we can still overtake them from there.
Because there's so many teams on 42 right now, guys. I don't know how much people follow like soccer normally in the tables, but normally there's a big group that separates stuff. Actually, if you just go look at the Western Conference, you can see like there's a group that separated stuff out in the 50s in points, and then there's like, it's just that's how things normally go, and we're all packed in there, which makes it much harder for us to make the playoffs because like everybody's like taking points off of these guys, so everybody in the bottom half is coming up,
and those tiebreakers really matter.
But we are still in this. Let's go fucking make the playoffs, baby.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. If we do make the playoffs, does Cincinnati immediately choose us?
If they're smart, yeah.
And I think the answer is yes. And if I were them, I would do the same.
So,
because you don't want,
we collected.
If you're Cincinnati, you don't want Carolina court necessarily because number one,
because
they're hotter than all get out. Now you might want them for revenge. But like they also beat you the last time
twice
at
Scudmore. Beat them
twice.
Carolina Core went and beat Cincinnati twice.
Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure. I think they beat them home and away. I think that was their only 2 losses, unless I'm remembering somebody different. I think that was Cincinnati's only 2 losses in like a 10-game unbeaten run. Were like Carolina Core twice. Unless it was a different team and wasn't Carolina.
I think you might be conflating Philadelphia with that one. But I know they did lose once at home. No, Cincinnati did the business at Core.
Oh, so I must be thinking Philadelphia. My bad.
But anyway,
point being is,
so Carolina's really hot.
Also, nobody wants to play Carolina right now. It pains me to say that. I'm not happy about saying that, but like Carolina is hotter. So they're the opposite of us. We were super hot early, and then we've tapered off, and that's why you want to play us now, because we got our points early, and you're going to believe that if you can beat us in regulation, you're going to beat us. Now, if you think you're going to a shootout and beating us, fuck you, we're going to beat you. That is a proven fact. But we were hot early, and then we've been kind of like, not coasting is the wrong word, but we've been trying to find that winning form again, second half of the season. Carolina's the exact opposite. They were dog shit early. I mean, we beat the fuck out of them, and then they came back and beat us twice.
Yeah.
Like they got hot in the end of the season, and they are still hot, and they are not who you want to play right now.
No. They
just dismantled Columbus.
If you're Cincinnati, you've played Chicago 3 times, so you don't want to play anyone in your own conference, right? So that takes out Chicago, that takes out Columbus, that takes out New York, and those are the teams that like could be eligible right now. If you're really smart, you know why you want to play us, because flying up there is going to be difficult. So we're probably busing, and it's just going to make it that much harder to win. Yeah, but more so.
Because it's probably a 6-hour bus ride instead of an easy, quick flight. I don't think that they're going to take this into account, but if I'm picking us and I'm in Cincinnati, like it's harder to get there with a flight than it is. And if you do, you're going to Atlanta, whatever.
It's 6 hours. It's 6 hours on the bus. But more importantly, we've never been before. And you got your ass kicked by us in the second game of the season. They'll remember that. Because that wasn't necessarily a 3-0 game. We just took our chances. And I think that would if I'm strategically picking things, I want that matchup for a lot of reasons. But we have much bigger fish to fry first. I just want to make the playoffs because we can ruin anybody's day. Two more questions here. Thank you, Ross Singer. Do you think it matters for attendance on October 6th if we're no longer in the playoff contention? Because I don't actually. That's what he says.
So I don't think it does. I think it could matter a little bit because I think that our club does so much more marketing than they used to, meaning like email marketing, text message marketing, like the direct to consumer marketing. I mean, we had times in the past where we definitely did like billboards and we had stuff, but now we're on buses, we're on all these things. But I do think the direct, like I get texts now about it, I get emails about it, and I get regular both. I think that being able to reach out and being like, if, decision day, if we win today, we're in the playoffs. I realize we're not going to say the opposite, directly reaching out if we're not, but if we are, I think they're going to be able to push that and you will get a small bump. I don't know what it is. It's 5%, 10%, 20, even 20%. I don't think it's a big number necessarily, probably, but I do think it matters a little bit if we are in. I just think if we're not in, it's the last game of the season and people are going to show up. Because for the most part, this is Chattanooga's team, and win or lose, people show up. But I do think it's easier to support a winner, and more people want to support a winner. And if we're in it, and we can market that we're about to be in the playoffs, if we win, there will be a little extra oomph, just a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think they're even going to be able to, without a bunch of results going our way. I don't even think they'll be able to market that.
No, but they will be able to market, like, if we win today, they'll be able to make a come see us, make the push for the playoffs thing. Like last game of the season,
we'll
push for the playoffs thing. You can still marketing speak your way through that.
We'll probably be in the conversation, provided we don't lose. And even then, even if we lose in Toronto, their results have to go a certain way for us to be eliminated in Toronto, although it is on the table. And then last question, how do we feel about Sunday games? We're now in year 2 of regular Sunday action in the fall.
When it first started, I hated it. Now I love it.
Yeah.
So there's 2 reasons I love it. Number 1, selfishly, it lets me have my Saturday to do other things, which I didn't used to like, but I do like now because I don't work a regular job, so that like my Mondays are a little more flexible than like having to be at work at 5 a.m. like I used to. So that's just a selfish reason. The other thing is we're going against NFL football, not college football, and very clearly, like in the South, Chattanooga cares more about college football than it does about NFL football. So I'd rather go against NFL football. A 3:00 Sunday game gives you time to get home.
Gives you time in the morning for like whatever you're going to do, go to church, like sleep in, go to brunch, whatever. It also gives you time in the evening.
It's good.
Obviously the weather is not conducive to playing 3:00 on Sundays like throughout the year.
No. And I wouldn't like that because I really like Saturday nights in the summer, but at a certain point in the fall, it does make sense to switch. And I was wrong to be skeptical, or not to be skeptical, to be against it initially, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago when Jeremy started it. Yeah, it works. Sundays work.
Yeah. The rules.
I mean, it's something Sheldon asked us about when Sheldon was in charge. He said, "Hey, do you think we should do Sundays going against whatever?" And I was like, "I think that's stupid. I don't think you should do that." Wrong. Mea culpa. Wrong. Is that the last thing?
Yeah, that's it.
Listeners, viewers, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. You can watch us on YouTube. You can comment on YouTube. Likes and subscribes would mean a lot. If you are considering going to Toronto, pull that fucking trigger. And if not, in any case, we will see hopefully all of you in Chattanooga. Well, I won't be here, but in Chattanooga for the final decision day game of the season.
This is actually really important because this is probably our last podcast for a little while.
I'm going out of the country for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
headed to visit the in-laws and the grandparents, my wife's grandparents. So I will be out of town from Toronto because we're going to Toronto, then leaving straight from Toronto until like October 14th. So unless we decide to do some weird shenanigans over the internet, which I don't think we will, this will be our last podcast until potentially the postseason if we don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, so this is how it's going to work, and we're doing this on the fly. We didn't discuss this in advance.
We didn't discuss this at all.
So here's what's going to happen. If we make the playoffs, we will do a podcast. I'll rip his ass out of bed, jet lagged or whatever. We'll get a podcast in, talk about the last couple games of the season,
and we'll preview the playoff game.
We'll preview the playoff games
because
we're going to know midweek.
By the way, we might be podcasting at 7 a.m, so I can catch up on all the other things I need to catch up on.
Yeah. So we'll get that done. If we don't make the playoffs, because there's that weekend gap between October 6th decision day and the first round of the playoffs.
Have they announced that yet? By the way,
I don't think so.
That's what we were told. We were told there's going to be a week gap.
Next pro, get your shit together, please. But that's how it's going to go. So if we don't make the playoffs, there's a big time gap, about 10 days or so, in between when we the last game and when we could, which means it is possible. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying it is possible that roster decisions might be out in public. That all number of manner of things might for off season might be going on. So what we'll do at that point is not a review of Toronto and the Red Bulls games, because those are lost to the annals of history, I think, for tactical whatever.
Also, yeah.
Is that we'll kind of just probably put together like an end of season pod.
So
that will be like cover the entire season, cover all manner of things. We'll close the book on the season.
We'll do the player goodbyes.
Whatever we need to do, whatever has been announced.
Whenever that happens, so what kind of some of the things you can expect for the offseason, which Matt and I have not talked about, but we can talk about live on the pod right now, is like we're gonna do goodbyes for the players. We always do. Yeah. It's really special, and it's something that I'm gonna do whether or not they ever hear about it or not. Which is share some positive moments. And by the way, you guys should send us your positive moments.
Absolutely.
As soon as the season ends and you start hearing of players leaving, you should send us like your top moments. They can be as many as you want, but we're not looking for negative moments. Only positive moments.
Only positive.
Doesn't matter how much somebody played. If somebody played every game, if they played whatever, we eulogize their career with CFC with positive moments. And then we will certainly do an in-depth season review at some point. Hopefully we'll be able to have Rod on before he leaves and goes back to I'm assuming he'll go back for a couple months, which he usually does in the offseason at a certain point. He and the staff kind of get together for a little while after the season, and they do their thing, and then eventually he goes home. Everybody gets like not vacation, but like working remotely time, where they all work remotely, and then they like get together at different times and whatever else. So my hope is we can have him on for a review of the season. We'll do our own review of the season. We'll get really in depth on what we think went right, what we think went wrong. We'll give our season reviews and grades. We'll at some point do New Year's resolutions for the following year and what we want to see. And then I'm sure, because there's been some really good questions over the past few years past few months that we have earmarked for the offseason. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about roster construction, what we want to see next year, how we want to see us play, what differences, what we learned from not just the club, but what we learned from MLS Next Pro in our first year and what we want to see in our second, third, and fourth year in MLS Next Pro and those type of things.
Yeah.
So listeners, thank you for listening. Viewers, thank you for watching. We love you. Peace.